Hello friends, welcome to this demonstration. In this video, we will see how to use Helm. Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. We would use Helm to install Prometheus in our Kubernetes cluster and Grafana also in our Kubernetes cluster. Prometheus is a monitoring tool which we intend to use to monitor our cluster, the nodes, the infrastructure, the applications running in a Kubernetes cluster. And when Prometheus does this task, we would use Grafana to visualize the data scraped by the Prometheus. Now, along with Prometheus come four other packages which are installed at the same time when we would install Prometheus. Those packages are the Alertmanager, the Prometheus node exporter, the Kube state metrics, and the Prometheus push gateway. So, but of note for us, we would also configure all of these. They are already configured in the Prometheus Helm charts, which we would see in a moment. We would also configure Alertmanager to be able to send email notifications to the configured email addresses in the settings. Again, we would be able to visualize the user interfaces of these three applications to see how they work and how we can configure every part of this project to work together one with another. So Prometheus would scrape data, real-time data from our Kubernetes cluster and send visualizations, send data for visualization in our Grafana, and send alerts to the alert manager. The alert manager in turn sends the alert as email to our Gmail address, which we will specify. So please feel free to subscribe to this channel if you have not done so. Like the video, share it. If you have any comment, please put them in the comment section. Happy watching. This demonstration is brought to you by Merciboi Systems Solutions. Please feel free to check us out on this website on your screen. This demonstration is to show how to install, configure, and use Prometheus monitoring tool alongside Alertmanager and Grafana for data visualization. So Prometheus is quite an important monitoring tool, especially for Kubernetes clusters. So we're going to be installing, configuring, and making use of Prometheus alongside other applications attached to it to monitor our Kubernetes cluster. This is also able to be used in both production, large-scale production clusters, and every task that we carry out here is also applicable in the large scale production clusters, Kubernetes clusters. For me, right now, I'm using my local host and I'm using my Kubernetes cluster in my local host. I'm using Minikube, a single node cluster right here. And you can also use this in Minikube. You can also use it in Kubernetes clusters, KubeADM, cloud Kubernetes clusters, EKS, Amazon. You can use Google Kubernetes Engine. You can use Azure Kubernetes Service. And, it's still the same principle that governs all of these clusters. And Prometheus is able to provide you with such an added advantage to be able to monitor your cluster and your applications. So let's get right into it. A quick look at my cluster right here. So I have the queue, as I mentioned earlier. So I just got no port here. Right. I have one service, the Kubernetes service. One node Minikube. All right. So that's my Minikube component. So everything is all set for me to run. Now, first thing do is to install Helm in your Kubernetes cluster. Right below this video, in the description, there's a link to the GitHub where you'll find every reference and every link you need to be able to run this task from beginning to the end. So, but for me, I already have Helm installed here. If you don't have, go ahead and run the command, just like you see it right there, with the reference. So I have Helm. So to be able to use my Helm, I want to be able to search Helm repo ls. I don't have any repository here for Helm, okay? I also do not have any application running here that I've used Helm for. Helm is application manager for Kubernetes. So to go on, I'll first of all install Helm, which I already done. So the next step is to be able to install Prometheus in this cluster using Helm. Okay, the first thing I need to do is to add the repository for the Helm charts for Prometheus. This command does that. So this is the Prometheus community. So if I do repo ls, I find that repository added already. If you've done that, you can run Helm update to update the repository in case there's any update, download. So that's done. So after that, I want to search the repository charts so I can choose which chart I want to install. So I'm searching Helm search repo, Prometheus community. It's quite a lot here. So, but for us, what we need for this task is this Prometheus community, Prometheus. All right. And part of the default configuration for this chart is that it has dependencies, and the dependencies would be installed alongside this. So I don't have to add to install these other ones manually. Those dependencies are the Alertmanager. It also has the Kube state metrics. It also has the Prometheus node exporter. And we also have the Prometheus push gateway. So these dependencies are part of what will be installed once I install Prometheus in this cluster. So let's get right into it. So install that. I run Helm install. I want to call the release name Prometheus. And I'm installing Prometheus community / Prometheus. Now, before I run this installation, I want to add to this installation custom configuration to create my alert rules for my Alertmanager to use. So I would add the configuration, but I have not already added it at the moment. So I would comment this and try to create the file. So I'll create a directory. We call the directory Prometheus because I want to get that file right inside this directory. Let's cd into Prometheus. The file I want to add, I want to call that Prometheus YAML. The content of this file is also found in the repository for which I have provided the link under this video. So this is the file I want to add. And every step-by-step instruction just right here. So I want to copy the content of this file, Prometheus.yaml. Yes, I have to copy all of them. With that, come into this file. It's everything. So these are rules. I have usually two headings in these rules. I have note down and I have low memory alert. You can have as many rules as you want, depending on your use case. All right. So note down has only one alert there, instance down. So when these conditions are fulfilled, the alert is triggered. Then we have the low memory alert. The first alert is low memory when these conditions are fulfilled. All right. And again, you have keep persistent volume errors. When these conditions are fulfilled, the alert is triggered. Again, we have keep pod crashing loop. When these conditions are fulfilled, it triggers this alert. And finally, we have queue pod not ready. When these conditions are fulfilled, it triggers the alert. Just like I said earlier, you're free to add as many rules as you want, depending on your use case. So for me, I'm good with this. So I save and quit. Now I can run this command. Helm install. I'll pass flag Prometheus YAML. Be able to add this custom configuration, these custom alerting rules into this. So that is done. So Prometheus is already installed here. Okay, so the next thing I will need to do is to be able to connect to my Prometheus server UI. And to do that, there are multiple ways to get to it. The first is to run this command. Once I run this command, I'll be able to access the UI from this local system. All right. The second is by using the kubectl expose service command. And the third is by using ingress, nginx ingress, which would also take some configurations. So, but for now, for this task, I will run with this command for this first time. So I'll copy this command, get into another terminal right here, paste this command. It runs and gives me an access. And because I'm running this from my local system, this tab has to be open for me to be able to access this. So I'm connecting localhost on port 9090. So let's connect to it, to our browser, localhost 9090. So this is a Prometheus right now. All right, so if you go to alerts, these are the rules I mentioned earlier, two rules, basically, note down and low memory alert. And of course, these are the alerts. Remember we saw 4 alerts, in the second rule. Okay, this is already active. We'll get to see that in a moment. And the conditions are actually below them. All right, each of the alert has the conditions in there. So feel free to explore this user interface for your Prometheus. All right, so many information. Want to see the rules? We have the rules here. First rule, note down. All right, instance down. When an instance is down, this is triggered anyway, but we're not going to be able to see that. Low memory alert, 4 alerts, first one, second, third, and fourth. All right. So you have targets, you have endpoints. So these are your endpoints because we have only one. It's a single node cluster. So we have only one node. All right. So we have that. That's the one endpoint in our node, Kubernetes nodes, and we have only one API server because we have a one control plane. All right. So this here advisor, Kubernetes service endpoints. Kubernetes metrics, the Prometheus itself. This is the Prometheus we're connected to right now, the push gateway, and so on and so forth. So feel free to be able to look around all of these. So back to the alert. So we've been able to access our Prometheus server on our graphical user interface. Now, the next thing we want to do is to be able to access our Alertmanager server. All right. So to access our Alertmanager, the same methods are available. Either you run this command here, or we use the kubectl expose command, or we use Nginx ingress, which, as I mentioned earlier, will require some configurations. I've used this for the first one. So for the second one, I will use the kubectl expose command. Okay, but before I run that, let's look at the service of the services we have. kubectl get service. So this is a service for the Alertmanager that we want to access. All right, so I want to expose that right now. So the command is kubectl expose service, and the service is Prometheus Alertmanager, and the type service I want to create will be node port. The target port will be 9093 to the target port for Alertmanager 9093. And I want to call this new service. I want to call that Alertmanager access. I call that Alertmanager access. There's an error right here. So let's quickly correct that. This Prometheus Alertmanager. That's the name of the service right here. And everything looks fine. Oh, it's an error. Alertmanager. Let's repeat the command. Did that. Alertmanager. Done. So we've run that. So if we run kubectl get svc now, we'll see the Alertmanager access. We don't have any external IP. That's because I'm using Minikube in my local environment. All right. If you're on the cloud at this point, you will simply use the IP address of your server, of your node, alongside the node port provided here, and you're able to access the Alertmanager. But for me, working in Minikube right here, I would have to do more than that. And to be able to access that, I will copy this into my new tab. Right. I get into this. This is my new tab right here. Because I'm using Minikube. I run Minikube service. Start Alertmanager access, which is the name of the service. So Minikube is able to map it and give me an external URL to access. So I'm going to be accessing this URL from my local environment. So I've copied the URL. 127.0.0.1 is equivalent to localhost. Of course, the port is 45119. So I'll get into my browser to use that. So localhost 45419 will get me into my Alertmanager. So this is my Alertmanager right here. So right now I have one alert active. So the same alert is active here, one alert. A few things to take note of. We have the default receiver here, but that's not what we want to use. take note of this. If you go to status tab, is ready, so that's no problem. Now, but the configuration I want to change, I will do that in the next step. To be able to receive notification, email notification, right in my email, when something goes wrong, when an alert is triggered, it sends an email to me to be able to receive that and attend to the problem and solve whatever it is that needs to be solved. So we're going to get to that in a moment. That's the next step we're going to run. Now, silence is when there's an alert here and you want to silence it, maybe because you are expecting that alert to be. So you can simply silence it so that it doesn't send you alert messages. So once you silence any alert point here, it appears in your silences right here. Okay, so that's that. And the default receiver here is because of this configuration in status, where we have the receiver as the default receiver. But we're going to change that in the next step. So we've been able to access our Alertmanager on the UI. So let's quickly go and configure email notification for our Alertmanager. So we get back to our command line. From there, a quick look at what we have at the moment. Get all. For me, I'm working in the default namespace for everything, all right? That's because that's what I choose to do. Whatever your environment is, production environment, you have different namespaces. Please feel free to specify the namespaces, and it makes your work much more organized at the higher level. So this is what I have in the overall. So to be able to do that, we'll need it in the configurations that was used to set up Prometheus Alertmanager, and that is through the config map. So for me to make such edit in the config map, let me get the config maps I have available, and I have two of them related to Prometheus, but I'm interested in Prometheus Alertmanager because that's what I want to change or edit something in it so that I can have my email notification getting to me whenever there's a problem. So I will simply edit this. So to edit that, run my command kubectl edit config map. I'm editing Prometheus Alertmanager. And I will be editing from this point, global, so I can change the receiver. So this is where we have the default receiver configuration that we saw in Alertmanager UI. So this is where we have that configuration. So to be able to change that, let's get to the configuration we want to use there. So back to the same GitHub. We've been working with. So the component is here, Prometheus alert.yaml. So you simply copy from global to the end. I will explain the components in a moment. So copy from global to the end, get back into my command line. So that's right in here. Now, let's finish up the editing. So resolve timeout is 1 minute. That's fine for me. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 2 minutes, it can be anything. Gmail notification is what I choose to call it. It can be anything. So the email configurations, we have to put working and active email addresses or address as the case may be. So 2 is where you want to send the email to. I choose to send the email to this email address. You can have multiple email addresses. All you need to do is simply specify all the email addresses you want to use, and so on and so forth. You have all of them in there, but I don't need this at the moment, so I am using only one email address. And the next thing is the from email address. The from email address is where the email will originate from, and I choose to use the same. It can be anything, it can be any email address, any Gmail address. Smart host is constant for Gmail, smtp.gmail.com 567. The auth username must be the same thing as the from, because that is where this application will get authentication from to be able to send the email to the email addresses you have in your tool at this point. So they must be the same thing. So I have to put in there Merciboi 2023. Merciboi 2023. And for password, you could put your email address password here. The password for this email address, which is what this application will use to authenticate itself to be able to send the email. However, it is not safe to put your password right here. It can come in many ways. You can put the password here as encoded secret. You create a secret and be able to pass the reference here. Or to keep it as simple as possible, there's something we call app password in Gmail. So we simply get to our Gmail account and create an app password with which we can attach to that. So into our email address, you just go to manage your Google account. It gets you to security, gets you to this point, gets you to home. You click on security. When you are in security, you simply come to search here and search for passwords. Before you can use this app password, you must have two-factor authentication enabled for your Gmail account. So you click on app passwords. It requires you to put in your password for authentication that you're the one making this change. So you simply put in your password in there and it lets you get in. Once you get in, I don't have any app passwords now. So I will go ahead and create one. Now let me call the app password I want to create. Let me call it Kubernetes. So I want you to for Kubernetes. It can be anything. I'll create that. Now please make sure you copy this. So once you copy this, because you will see it again after now, so you copy this, click done. Once you click done, it's been created. So with the password you copied, app password you copied, you come in here and edit this. Editing it, remove the spaces. That's it. Everything is done and ready. But remember, we need to remove something from here. So we remove this, we remove the default receiver, we don't need it again. Everything on that default receiver, we remove it, and that's it. That's everything. We save and quit. So it says configure Prometheus Alertmanager edited. However, for Alertmanager, which is this, has been created before we made this edit. So this edit would not be affected here because this pod is already running. And because it will not be affected here, because the pod is running, if you get to the UI also, it will not be affected. I'll refresh this. It won't be affected. It's still the default receiver because the pod is already running. Now, to be able to effect that, you simply delete this pod. Now, when you delete this pod, it's going to be recreated in a stateful set from where it is deployed. So the Prometheus Alertmanager was deployed as a stateful set. So if we delete the pod, the stateful set will recreate it. So let's get pod again and then run the command to delete the pod. kubectl delete pod. The pod you want to delete is Prometheus Alertmanager 0. Once you delete that and check pods again, it's being recreated. The pod, so the new pod is now running. All right, so now that it's running, we get back to our UI. All right, refresh this, and you see the change has been effected. Global Gmail notifications and all our settings have been applied. So right now, from this point, I can receive Gmail alerts from my monitoring, from Alertmanager at this point. So let's get right into it. Back into our Prometheus. We have one alert that's active here, low memory. And we have one alert active here. Okay, the low memory seems to be resolved, but it's been refreshed. This has been refreshed. So just give it a little while, because we just changed the configuration. It will reload the alert at the specified times. Now, the time for the low memory is every 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So in the next 2 minutes, I'll have an alert triggered right here. The time for virtually every one of them is for 2 minutes. Queue port not ready, 2 minutes. So at the when 2 minutes is gone, we will be able to get an alert, triggered here because of the change that we have made. Okay, right now we have our alert right here. One alert, which is the same thing we have here. One alert active. And our default receiver is gone. We now have Gmail notifications. So it's going to send me a Gmail alert, which has already come in. Prometheus alert. One alert for low memory. All right, so that's it. So I have one alert. It will keep sending the alert until it's resolved. It keeps sending the alert until it resolves. Okay, so we have one alert. I'll make a sample deployment that's going to create another alert. So this YAML file contains a manifest that's not properly configured. So we'll simply apply that. And if we say, if we get ports, error image pool. So the image does not exist. All right, so it's going to create an alert in my Prometheus and in my Alertmanager. Okay, so remember it's for 2 minutes. Remember it's for 2 minutes. So if the pod doesn't come up in 2 minutes, it sends an alert. And so that's the beauty of Prometheus as a monitoring tool. All right, it's able to send you an alert, and you simply go in, troubleshoot whatever is triggering the alert, and solve the situation as quickly as possible, so as to maintain your application and make sure there's no downtime. All right, so that's the beauty. In 2 minutes, we're going to have the alert triggered, and we're going to receive an email alert for that too. So let's wait for it. Okay, we have our alert here already. Qpod not ready. All right, so let's take a look at our alert manager. It's yet to come in here. It's yet to come in here. So the process is, it's picked up by the Prometheus server, and then it's forwarded to the alert manager, from where the email notification is sent to whichever email address or addresses that you specify in the configurations. Okay, so okay, right now we have the Q alert here, and it has already sent an email notification for the one alert, new alert now. Okay, this is still for the low memory. Okay, I have one only for one alert. I'm going to get another email soon for the two alerts, specifying the two alerts, the low memory and the Q pod not ready. Okay, right now I have the email alert for the two alerts that have been triggered, the low memory alert and the Q pod not ready. So it will keep sending these alerts until I get into my Kubernetes cluster and solve whatever problem that has happened or whatever has triggered the alarm. So that's it about Alertmanager and Prometheus in action. So the next thing we're going to do is to install Grafana, which is our visualization tool. Okay, so to get right into it, back to our command line. First thing we need to do is to add Helm charts, the repository for the Helm charts. Okay, so with that done, we update Helm repo update, newly updated. So let's search the repo. Search repo. I want to search Grafana. Okay, contains quite a lot. But what we would need now is just the Grafana. That's what we want to install now. So let's get right into it. So we installed Helm install. It's called the release name Grafana. And we're installing Grafana. I'm installing in a default namespace. If I have a different namespace I want to install, I'll simply pass the namespace flag and fit there. But doing everything on the default namespace, feel free to do it in whichever namespace you like. So installing Grafana now. Okay, that has been installed. Now the next thing, a look at this is that you will log in with an admin user and with a password, which you will get when you run this command. So let's run this command right here. So this is the admin password for the login. Okay, now to access the Grafana URL, you will run this command to access that. Okay, so again, you can also access the URL with the second option, which is to expose the service, the Grafana service, or you can also use the third option, which is with Nginx ingress. So, but for now, I'll run through this command. Go to my other tab. This tab is still running. I'll get a new tab right here. I'll start. So my Grafana is running on my local host for 3000. So I get into my UI, get into localhost for 3000. It requires me to log in. Remember, it's admin. And we will go to copy the password we obtained here. Copy that. Back to the UI. It's the password in there. Login. So we successfully logged into our Grafana UI. So the first thing we need to do is to add our data source. The data source from where we want what we want to display in Grafana, and we're using Prometheus at the moment. Now it's asking for Prometheus server URL, and you choose to call this Prometheus. It can be anything, and you choose to make it the default. You know, it can be anything. You can actually uncheck this and not call it your default. So because I'm running in my local host and I'm working with Prometheus from here, I wouldn't be able to get into Grafana with localhost 9090. I would have to expose the Prometheus service to be able to get a Minikube service URL to be able to access my Prometheus server from the Grafana UI. So what do I do from here? I simply run kubectl get services. The service I'm interested in now is the Prometheus server, because I want a URL I would add to the Grafana UI to be able to access that. All right, the URL that is kind of different from the local host. Okay, so to get that, I'll do kubectl expose service. Service I want to expose is Prometheus server, and the type of service I want to create is node port, and the target port is Prometheus server is port 9090. It's the port I will use to get it. And I want to call that Prometheus access. I want to call that Prometheus access. Okay, so Prometheus access is exposed already. So if I run kubectl get service, I'll find the Prometheus access right here. but with no external IP. Now to get an external IP, I'll run minikube service, Prometheus access. Okay, so it gives me the URL. So I'm going to be using this to be able to connect to my Prometheus. So that's my UI. Is that in there? If the default settings, save and test. So successfully queried the Prometheus API. If we had used the local host, it would not have allowed me to get into it. All right, again, all of these things are because I'm working on my local system. If you are on the cloud, once you expose the service, it gives you, once you expose the service, either as a node port service or even as a load balancer, it gives you an external IP to access. And with that, you can actually, access that. So this has been saved now. So this is successful. So I want to get into my dashboard. I can get out from this point now. Okay, I have the data source already put there. And so let me get into my dashboard. And so create my first dashboard. Okay, I want to import a dashboard. Okay, so from here, instead of creating dashboards by yourself, adding visualizations and creating rows and panels, you can simply import already, provided dashboards using their respective IDs or URL. You can actually search out these anyway, but I have a few of them right here. So I have 6417. So if I load this dashboard, all right, and I choose to call it this. They call this Kubernetes cluster Prometheus. You can call it whatever you want. All right. Folder is general. It has the UID. Now you select the data source, which will appear here. We've actually created this data source a moment ago. We call it our default Prometheus. So we put it in there, Prometheus, and simply import. Okay. So this is our dashboard. So we have a dashboard right here. If you want to save this, you can go ahead and save the dashboard. All right, you can go ahead and save it. You can have as many dashboards as you want. Okay, so here it gives us, generally general information, cluster pod capacity, cluster pod usage, CPU usage, memory capacity, disk capacity, deployment replicas, the deployment replicas you have. Okay, so you're able to see all of these. Number of nodes, I have only one node. I have 13 pods running, and I have one pod pending. Remember, there's one pod that didn't start because we used the wrong image. We wanted to use that to create an alert. Containers running, 14 containers. Containers waiting, 1 is waiting. Terminated, 0. Restarts, not applicable. Okay, so here you're able to visualize everything you want. This is for nodes, all namespaces. Right. If you have a specific namespace you want to visualize, you simply put in the namespace. If you want a specific node you want to see, you simply put in the node. Okay, I'll save this dashboard. All right, I'll save that. I've saved the dashboard, so I can go back to my home. I want to import another dashboard. I can import another dashboard. Let me say I want to import 3119. I load it. Once I load it, I select the data source, Prometheus, and I import that. So this is another dashboard. All right. Network input output pressure. All right. Data sources from default, which is the Prometheus server we have. Node is all nodes. If you have different nodes, you can actually select them, whichever one you want to visualize the metrics. You simply select it right here. All right. And you have total cluster memory usage, you have this is being used out of 6.69 gigabyte. Cluster CPU usage, okay, you can see everything here. Out of 16, CPU, you are using 0.53. All right. So this keeps you informed of what exactly you are using, ports memory, these ones. So container network, and so on and so forth, ports network. So all these configurations can be made just as you like. So I can save this one, can save that, and get back to my dashboard. I want to import another dashboard. Let me import 11074 and load that. Select my Prometheus data source, import it. So this is my 1104 dashboard, CPU usage, memory usage, partition used, disk writes, and so on, uploads and downloads in kilobits per second. All right, the IP link right there. Okay, so Kubernetes service endpoints, you have values already anyway. So because I have resources running in this cluster, so please take your time and take a look at all of these. All right. Some dashboards are more detailed than the others. CPU usage, you can see that. All right. There's some data here. There's some data here. Network bandwidth, disk write, read write. Okay. So I can choose to save that and go for another dashboard. Import another dashboard. Let's import 8919. Okay, this appears to be in another language, but nevertheless, it's still a possible dashboard. All right. So if you can understand that, that's fine. All right. That's also a dashboard. Okay. So I can choose to save that. And the final dashboard I have here, there are many of them online. So you can use as many as you want, depending on your use case. Data source is still Prometheus. Okay, so you have that. Pulse running count, pending one, no field, node storage, CPU idle average, memory, load, disk, containers, and so on and so forth. So that's the task. So our monitoring Kubernetes cluster is up and we are good with them and we are fine at the moment. So we have all our dashboards here. So you can quickly go to whichever dashboard you want to see. Okay, so Kubernetes cluster, this is our default, the first one we had. All right, I go back into it. And, you can pick as many dashboards as possible depending on your use case. So whichever one you prefer to use, please feel free and use that. I hope you've enjoyed the video. All right, I have a lot to keep coming in until I address them or I silence them. All right, so that's the task. I have this GitHub repository attached here. Please feel free to get it and try the project yourself. Everything that we've done here are all applicable to production Kubernetes clusters. So they are real and they are viable. So please, if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Like this video, comment on it, share it, subscribe to our channel, and you'll be notified of our recent videos. Thank you very much for watching. See you.